Hello, I'm Neil Frood. Welcome to the Activate Your Life course. There are 4 films in this series and they will take you on a journey. Think of it as a journey of psychological discovery. In this course, you'll learn a lot about how your mind works, and you'll discover that your mind often works against you. It's the same for everyone. Our mind often plays tricks on us and tries to control us. And as a result, our own mind often spoils things for us. But the good news is that we can stop this happening. Rather than letting your mind spoil things, making you distressed and stopping you doing things that really matter to you, you can learn to take control and to make life a whole lot better for yourself. This psychology-based course will help you to become your own trainer and your own therapist. It's based on scientific research and an exciting approach called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, ACT. There's very good evidence that ACT can help people take more control of their actions and can decrease the suffering that comes from health issues and emotional problems. Activate Your Life is all about you having a better life, a life with less grief and more freedom to do the things that really matter to you. The course consists of 4 films, and we refer to these as Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 and Act 4. Each film will introduce new ideas and new activities, and your understanding and skills will gradually increase as we go through the course. This first film is called Activate Your Life. Act 1, You Are Not Your Mind. And it's all about getting wise to your mind. We'll show you how your mind works and how it often works against you. We'll also start to show you how you can gain more control over your life and stop your mind spoiling things. Each of the acts has a slogan, and the slogan for Act 1 is Get Wise to Your Mind. The next film, Act 2, is called Facing Up to Life. When there's something we're not happy with, we naturally try to change it. Often we try to avoid it, or to fight it, or to fix it. So if you hate shopping in large stores, for example, you may avoid all supermarkets. Or if you're in pain, you may try to fight the pain. Or if you're depressed, you may try to pull yourself together. But such strategies don't work, and in fact, they often make things a whole lot worse. So what's the best thing we can do? In Act 2, you will learn how to accept the things that you don't want in your life, but which can't be changed. And the slogan for Act 2 is, Accept what you cannot change. Act 3, Being Mindful, is about focusing on what's happening right here and right now, rather than thinking about the past or wondering about what might happen in the future. Mindfulness is a very important part of ACT, and we will be showing you how you can develop mindfulness skills. Act 3 focuses on mindfulness then, and the slogan for that session is Be Here Now. The final film, Act 4, is called Living Wisely, Living Well, and the slogan for that session is Do What Matters. It focuses on what you value in life and will help you to answer questions such as, what really matters to me? What do I want my life to be about? What do I most care about? Knowing the answers to these questions will help you to make your life more interesting and more satisfying. And committing yourself to doing the things that really matter to you is the very best way for you to have a better life. Our aims for the course are ambitious, to help you get the best out of life now and into the long-term future. We'll do this by showing you how your mind works and teaching you skills that will enable you and not your mind to control your actions. We believe that everyone can benefit from this course. That includes people with emotional problems, mental health issues, physical health conditions, and even people who have no problems at all, although that is a very rare condition.
Hello, I'm Abby. So, let's start the Activate Your Life course with Act 1, You Are Not Your Mind. We're going to talk a bit about how your mind works. Many of the things we do are things that we've decided to do. So these are deliberate actions. You may decide to watch a particular programme. But some of the things we do are done automatically. We don't even have to think about them because our mind just does them for us, automatically. Actions that are often directly controlled by the mind include breathing, walking, driving, riding a bike, and eating. Actions that are always under our own deliberate control include planning a holiday, buying a car, choosing a baby's name, or doing a crossword. So some of our actions happen without us thinking about them or even noticing what we're doing. Automatic actions controlled directly by our mind, such as breathing and walking, are sometimes said to be on autopilot. So, for example, we may walk a familiar route without making any conscious decision about which way to turn or how far to go. And we often eat without noticing the taste of the food or giving any thought to what we're eating. At times, when someone is talking to us, we may be switched off, so that what they're saying goes in one ear and out the other. So we hear them, but we're not really listening. After being on autopilot, when we eventually switch back on, we may wonder, oh, how did I end up here? What have I just eaten? What did she say to me? The autopilot is fine for simple actions carried out under normal conditions, but when things are different or dangerous or important, so for example, if we're walking downstairs in the dark or if someone's giving us vital information, we need to take over from the autopilot and pay careful attention. Now, one example of an automatic action is breathing. All day today, you've been breathing, of course, and you probably haven't thought about your breathing once, until now. That's because breathing is almost always automatic. We don't need to think about our breathing or do anything to control our breathing, but we can if we want to. So now, for just 3 or 4 breaths, just notice your breathing. Just notice what happens to your body as you breathe, in and out, in and out. And now, having simply noticed your breathing, this time take control of your breathing for just a little while. So gently take in a deep breath, hold, and now slowly breathe out. So most of the time, we just breathe naturally, without thinking about it and without controlling it. But we can notice our breathing if we want to. And we can control our breathing if we want to. Thinking things through and deciding what you're going to do is being mindful, and it's often better for you if you make a little effort and think things through. There are often benefits in consciously managing actions that are usually carried out automatically, instinctively, or just according to habit, because we've always done them. This course will show you ways of taking more conscious control. For example, there are 2 ways to shop. There is mindless shopping, which is impulsive, it's rushed, without thinking, and then there's mindful shopping, which is careful, which is where you price match, which is where you match on the quality, you take your time. Mindless shopping involves much less effort and it's a lot quicker, but in many cases looking into it, checking things out, shopping around, in other words, mindful shopping, is clearly the wiser option.
Hello, I'm Anya. Your mind is always active. It never switches off. Even when you are asleep, your mind still keeps working. It makes sure that you keep breathing, for example, and it controls what you dream about. Our mind never switches off, but we often do. When we switch off, people may say we are lost in thought, carried away, daydreaming, in a world of our own. It's natural for our attention to wander off so that we are often somewhere else. But when we daydream, we may miss out on things that are happening at the present time. It's often better not to be miles away, but to pay attention to what is happening right here and right now. Here is a brief, simple activity you can do right now to focus your attention on the here and now. For a short while, 20 seconds or so, just look at the palm of your hand. Simply look at the colours and the lines. There's no need to analyse anything or to make any judgment. Just look. Focusing on your hand in this way is a simple way of bringing your attention into the present moment. There are many benefits of increasing the time we spend focusing on what's going on right now, of being present. This course will show you many ways of focusing on the present moment. But before we do this, it's useful for us to develop a better understanding of how our mind works for us, and how it often works against us, causing us distress and limiting what we do. The following demonstrations will reveal various aspects of how your mind works. In a few seconds, you'll see a picture. When this happens, don't think of the name of a city. This time, you'll see some numbers. Don't work out the answer. This time, don't finish the sentence. And they all lived happily ever. How are you doing so far? Have you been able to follow the instructions and keep control? Or has your mind interfered and done its own thing? Here's another chance. When you see the next picture, don't think of the name of an animal. Now this time, when I say a word, do create a picture in your head related to the word. Gloves. I guess you found that one easy. Next, two simple images will appear. Just look at the two pictures, nothing else, just look. Although you are asked just to look at the pictures, your mind might have automatically gone further. They are pieces of a jigsaw. The two pieces are different. They could fit together. Now, just look at the next picture. Did your mind look for recognizable shapes in the picture, such as faces and animals? The mind often tries to find meaning and pattern, even in random material. When you see the next picture, try very hard not to name the very famous woman in the picture. Well, that was a trick. There's no picture. But did your mind come up with ideas about which famous woman might appear? Your mind often does this kind of thing. It anticipates. It jumps the gun.
So what have these demonstrations shown us about how our mind works? Well, they've shown us that the mind often does its own thing, and you can't stop this. However, although you can't stop your mind from doing things, you can make it do certain things. Think of an apple. That's easy. Now, don't think of a pineapple. We also saw that the mind constantly searches for meaning and patterns, even in random material. It tries to make sense of things. It always wants to know what's going on. And, as we saw in the case of the famous woman picture, which never actually appeared, the mind often jumps ahead. It doesn't wait for solid evidence, but anticipates and makes assumptions about what's likely to happen. And these predictions are often wrong. And they're often very worrying, because the mind tends to think the worst. So a minor physical symptom may be seen as indicating a serious medical condition. Or a family member who's late returning home may be assumed to have been involved in a serious road accident. Another important feature of the mind is that it reacts automatically to situations and events by triggering particular emotional feelings, as the following demonstrations show. Look at the next picture. Nothing else, just look at it. Were you able to just look? Or did the picture of the delicious cake make you feel something? Maybe your mouth watered. Next, you'll see a series of pictures, one after the other. Again, just watch. Although you were asked just to look at the pictures, your mind may have triggered certain emotional reactions. For example, the little girl's smile may have made you feel a little happier. Maybe the dirty ashtray gave you a feeling of disgust. Maybe the picture of the snake gave you a feeling of fear. And maybe the dog dressed in a suit gave you a feeling of amusement. You probably had some kind of emotional reaction to one or more of the pictures. And it's important to recognise that any feelings you experienced were generated automatically by your mind. You didn't choose or decide to have any of these feelings, they just happened. It's very important to recognise that feelings are not actions, they're not something that we do. Many feelings just happen to us, whether we like it or not. And because feelings just happen to us, whether we like it or not, we shouldn't feel guilty about any feelings that just happen, such as anger, resentment, revulsion, or jealousy.
It will help us to understand how our mind works if we appreciate that our mind wanders. So it travels through time and it travels through space. Our mind is very clever, but it often gets things wrong. Our mind is always looking out for threats, and to avoid danger, it's very cautious. Our mind is often highly critical and is likely to be very critical of us. And our mind always tries to stay in control. And if we try to take control, it will resist this. Let's think in a little more detail about each of these aspects about how the mind works. So first of all, the mind wanders. Let's start with a brief activity. I'm going to say a word, listen carefully, and after I've said the word, just wait for the next 10 seconds or so. The word is wedding. What happened? For most people, the word would probably trigger a particular thought, image or memory that would then lead on to a series of other thoughts and images. We can be sure that no two people would ever have exactly the same series of thoughts and images. For example, some people would start with an image of their own wedding. Other people would start by thinking about a wedding they went to recently, or a future wedding they've been invited to, or maybe even a wedding they've seen on TV. And from their different starting points, everyone's mind would then take them along different pathways. The mental pathway that the mind creates is sometimes labelled a daydream or a stream of thought. Now, the particular stream of thought created, out of the millions of possibilities, will reflect the person's current mood, their interests, their worries and obsessions. If someone is depressed, for example, their mind is likely to follow a dark and pessimistic pathway that includes many sad and disturbing ideas and memories. And the mind of a person who's very anxious may create a mental pathway involving lots of frightening elements. Here is an example of a stream of thought that might seem highly exaggerated, but is in fact very similar to the type of thinking that causes many people a great deal of distress. Look at that tomato on the edge of the table. It could easily roll off onto the floor. Someone could slip on it if they didn't see it, and if they hit their head on the stone floor, they might die. That tomato could be lethal. Okay, maybe that example is a little extreme, but it does illustrate how the mind works. It goes wandering off along pathways of ideas and may end up with worrying predictions about what could possibly happen in the future. In this case, the mind turns an ordinary tomato into a deadly threat. And people's minds do often take them down some amazing and totally improbable pathways.
Streams of thought provide one example of our tendency to overthink. To a large extent, we live inside our own heads, in the world of memories and fantasies, rather than in the external world. There are no worries out there in the world. Worries only exist inside our heads. And we live largely in the past and in the future, rather than in the present. But memories of the past and fantasies about the future can produce strong emotional reactions now. So, simply remembering an event that made you very sad a long time ago can make you sad again right now. And just remembering a past incident that was very embarrassing can make you feel embarrassed again right here and right now. This means that even when life is a breeze, your busy mind is able to trigger thoughts and images that have the power to worry you, to depress you, to embarrass you, to frighten you, and to keep you awake at night. So the mind's wandering will often take your attention away from what's going on at the moment. And it may take you to places and issues that you find disturbing and painful. What can you do about this? Well, you can't stop the mind wandering. That's what it does, and any attempt to stop it will almost certainly backfire. You cannot switch your mind off, and there's little you can do to divert it. So it's best just to let it be. You can notice where your mind is going and accept any thoughts and feelings that arise, but make your own judgments and decisions about what you will do. Even when our mind does focus on what is going on right now, rather than wandering into the past or the future, it will often make a comparison between how things are and how they were previously, or how they could have been, or how they might be in the future. The comparison process means that even when things are going really well, our mind may use its powers of comparison to find the cloud in the silver lining. So even if the current situation is fine, your mind may well suggest that it's not perfect, it won't last, it's not as good as it could be, other people are doing better. Your mind will frequently compare you, and often unfavourably, to other people, or to how you used to be, or to how you should be. The mind's general tendency to be critical and pessimistic means that many of the comparisons it makes are likely to bring us down by suggesting, for example, you're not as clever as she is. You're getting worse as you get older. He has a lot more friends than you. These days, many people constantly compare themselves with other people through social media. They get to see everyone having a great time, partying, surrounded by friends, and looking good. The selected material that gets posted often sends messages such as, I'm having a great life, I've got loads of friends, I look so good. Such edited highlights give a highly distorted picture, a false impression. Social media has many powerful positive effects, but it also leads to a great deal of misery through social comparison. The distorted and unrealistic impressions given by social media can have a depressing effect on people who are not in the picture and who do not have as many friends or likes. You can't stop your mind comparing you with other people or with how you should be, but you can learn not to be bothered by this. If you accept yourself as you are right now, you will be a lot better off. And if your mind makes a negative comparison, just recognize this negativity, but also recognize that you don't have to believe everything your mind tells you.
The mind is very clever. The human mind does many clever things as it constantly works away, monitoring what's going on, judging, comparing, predicting, recognizing. And so we generally accept our mind's judgments and its suggestions about what we should do. In a word, we trust our mind. But we need to be very careful about this, because our mind often gets things wrong. And when our mind gets things wrong, we often suffer as a result. We can show how the mind sometimes misleads us and plays tricks on us by thinking about the simple lines illusion. You've probably seen this many times before, and you know that the question is, of the two lines that go straight across, the horizontal lines, which one is longer? And you'll probably agree that the bottom straight line looks longer. But of course, your mind is playing a trick on you because the two lines are in fact exactly the same length. But when we go back to the original picture, the illusion is still there. The bottom line still looks longer, even though you know it's not. So if I asked you which of the two straight lines is longer, I imagine you would tell me they're both the same. Very wise. If you know that your mind is playing a trick on you, it's best to act on what you know, not on the impression your mind gives you. Sometimes your mind will give you a message that something is dangerous when you absolutely know that it's safe. If this happens and your mind tries to hold you back from doing something dangerous, rely on what you know. And if you know there's no real danger, go ahead and do it, even if it feels scary. If you know that you've already locked a door, for example, don't go back and check it again and again, even if your mind tells you to check it one more time just to be safe. So act on what you know rather than on any irrational and unjustified ideas and feelings that your mind has generated. This is the wise and sensible thing to do. Here's another example. If you absolutely know that a friend's pet snake is perfectly harmless and you'd quite like to handle it, your mind may tell you that the snake is horrible, disgusting, and dangerous. So what would happen? Would you go ahead and handle the snake? Or would your mind's warnings, even though you know they're silly, stop you touching the snake? The wise thing to do, easier said than done, would be to act on the basis of what you know, not on the basis of what your mind is telling you. Although your mind's warnings might still cause you some anxiety, you know that it's really safe and that it would be sensible to go ahead and handle the snake. This idea is captured in a saying that you may have heard before. Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's very important to recognise that you're not bound to believe everything that your mind tells you or to go along with its ideas. So be sceptical of what your mind tells you. Treat it with a healthy disrespect. Be on your guard, and when there's an important decision to be made, be alert, be careful, but be wise.
So the mind is very cautious. Because our mind evolved to keep us safe, it's always on the lookout for any possible threat. But minds tend to be oversensitive. They may become alarmed too easily and may worry us and frighten us when there's no real danger. Our mind holds us back by telling us, the world is a dangerous place. Stick to the things you know. Don't take risks. Because it focuses so much on threats and on things that might go wrong, the mind tends to be very cautious. Better safe than sorry. So it tries to hold us back from doing anything new, anything adventurous or daring. If we listen to our mind, we'll just stick to the things we know, the same places, the same activities and the same people. But if we restrict ourselves to things that are familiar and safe, we may miss out on lots of great opportunities to be adventurous, to explore new places and to meet new people. So talking about our critical mind, our mind is often very critical and negative, emphasising things that are wrong. They find opportunities to criticise just about anything that can be criticised. Minds are always looking out for any sign of weakness or failure or any flaw, and when they find something they think isn't quite right, they focus on it and magnify it. The mind's extreme critical bias can be especially distressing and damaging when it focuses its criticisms on us. Our mind will often make negative judgments about our appearance, for example, or about our personality, our habits, or our social behaviour. If your mind seems to have it in for you, rest assured, you're not the only one. Almost everybody's mind is critical and cruel to them at times. You certainly can't rely on your mind being friendly or compassionate towards you. Our mind may bombard us with criticisms that undermine our confidence. Nobody really likes you. You have always been selfish. You haven't got any willpower. You're a total failure. So what does your mind generally say to you when you look in a mirror? Does it say, you look fine, your eyes are amazing, you still got that great smile? Or does it say such things as, you look a real mess, just look at those wrinkles, another really bad hair day? Such criticism and insults can be very upsetting, but only if you take them on board and treat them seriously. If you simply notice your mind's criticisms and just let them be, this will take away their power to hurt you.
As well as being very critical, the mind is also bossy and will try to order you around. Minds often try to dictate what we should and shouldn't do and how we ought to respond. You ought to work a lot harder. You shouldn't be wasting your time. You should stand up for yourself. If you decide to do something that your mind doesn't want you to do, it will try its hardest to put you off. That's just pointless. Don't bother. It will never work. That's very risky. You'd just be wasting your time again. We often do what our mind suggests, usually without giving it much thought. But it's important to recognise that we don't have to go along with the mind's suggestions, advice, warnings, or orders. Your mind doesn't have the power to control what you do. Ultimately, you are in control of your actions. So when your mind suggests something or advises or bullies or tells you that you must do something, you are free to choose to go along with your mind's suggestions or to do what you want to do. Remember, it's so important. You don't have to do what your mind tells you to do. We have the power to change the relationship we have with our mind. We can decide that things are going to be different from now on. In this course, we will show you how to become a cool observer of your mind so that you just notice what it is doing without being over-controlled by it or taken in by it. You will have noticed that throughout this film, we've been emphasising the distinction between you and your mind. These are not the same thing. You are not your mind. For example, your mind travels here and there and back and forth in time, but you, the observer, you are always here and in the present. For you, it's always now. You can notice the things that are happening in your own mind, just as you can watch what's happening all around you in the external world. And you can also observe your own thoughts and feelings. You can see what your mind is getting up to. Imagine all your thoughts and feelings as if they were aspects of a stage show. There would be a lot of action on stage because a lot goes on in your mind. And you can see what's going on. So where are you? You are not on the stage. You are the audience, a spectator just noticing what your own mind is getting up to. So there's you and there's your mind. And these are separate. You are not your mind.
Mindfulness is a very important part of this course, and we will discuss it in detail in a later film in this series. But because mindfulness is so important, we'd like you to start practicing mindfulness right away. We suggest that you start with a simple activity, mindful breathing. This involves spending a little time just noticing all the sensations that occur as you breathe in and you breathe out. Guidance on mindful breathing is provided in the activity pack that you can freely download from the website where you found this film. This pack also covers a range of other activities associated with the course. We'll end this session now with a brief live mindfulness activity. You'll see a picture that will gradually change in colour. Just focus your attention on what's happening on the screen. Just notice as the colours slowly change. As you're watching, various thoughts and feelings may occur to you. That's natural. If this happens, just notice what's going on. Just let the thoughts and feelings come and go. This has been the first of 4 films in the Activate Your Life series, and we hope you found it interesting and helpful. We also hope that you'll want to go on to complete the course by watching the other 3 films in the series. And perhaps you have friends or family members who you think might be interested in the course. If so, do please let them know about it. The next film, Activate Your Life Act 2, Facing Up to Life, is available now from the current website. This film includes many more insights into how your mind works and suggests strategies that you can use to take more control of your actions. In this way, you can make life better for yourself and for the people around you. It may be best to wait for just a few days before you watch the next film, because that will give you some time to think about and absorb the ideas that we've introduced in this first film. We look forward to welcoming you to the next film in the series. Thank you for watching.